Like talking about food revolution, since you guys are in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign.
Right. So then we get to this point where China Millman gave us 2.5 stars, and she probably should have given us like 1.5.
So who's China Millman?
She was the food critic at the time, and she played a big for Pittsburgh, for Post-Gazette.
Post-Gazette,
and she was really good for this city because she took her job very seriously, and when she didn't have to, and it was enough that there was. You can say what you want, whether or not you agreed with her or not, but she was taking her job very seriously, and because of her, Pittsburgh cared enough about food writing that we were lucky enough to get, have, whenever she moved to New York with her husband, have a crack at some other really good food writers to come in here, and got lucky they picked, Melissa McCart. So without people taking food writing seriously, there would be no way that, Melissa, who'd been around the country and whatnot, would ever think about, coming to Pittsburgh. So, yeah, and again, she was well researched and she was solid. So she'd given us 2.5, and it's like, whoa, man, 2.5, that's sure. I mean, it was pretty funny because she was talking about how this, guy would come up from behind the bar and serve tables, and I'd run back behind the bar, and we didn't have enough money for employees yet, and she's reviewing us, but man, we had positive energy, and we really believed in the community, and we were going hard.
Yeah.
And the most important thing she said in that review is that every time I came back, during those even short 3-week stints, the things that I noticed that were wrong were getting better without anyone really, without me telling them to. So they're obviously reaching out to as many people as they can. And we were reaching out to people we knew in New York. We were reaching out to books and reading about restaurateurs and just completely immersed in, Michael was the biggest one of that because he was the most well-dined person. Like, that's the guy that, Michael knows how to dine well, and Michael's a stud, so he was pouring. So that was the most professional part of our game, was our wine game, even though it was the lowest revenue. But it was enough that he knew what needed to be around the wine game. So I was getting to a point then where we made our first couple of hires, and I went to stage 7 months in, which is like an apprenticeship, right? For 1 week at a bar called Columbia Room in DC with Derek Brown, and it was just named, I think, the Bartender's Choice Bar. It's a 10-seat bar, and it's a 3-course cocktail menu, and it's incredible. It's the tightest service you can get. So I come back from DC after a week there, just like on fire, talking about what my standards were, what the rest of the team standards need to be. We had some really good people working for us this time. I mean, not too many of them, not even three people working for us.
But 3 really awesome people.
3 really awesome people, right? Just people that were, with us and learning. And I said, okay, we need to it was like, we need to be connecting more with people outside the city and bringing more things to the table and telling people about them. And we'd started on Twitter, and at that point, and we'd start on Facebook. I was like, this is how we get more people in here and really grow this thing, is, we keep bringing more experiences. So I come back all fired up. And that Monday morning, it was Sunday night. We were drinking at Round Corner Cantina and talking about this, and I'm all fired up. And somebody sends me a message. He goes, hey, Jamie Oliver's going to be at Phipps tomorrow morning. He's in town for One Young World. I'm like, whoa, man, we're just talking about bringing in new ideas. He's coming to Pittsburgh for One Young World and to talk about food revolution. I'm going to Phipps. I called all of my press friends, which is hilarious, right? Because you're calling your press friends for a press.
I really need to get in Phipps.
Yeah, I was like, I really need, and which was hilarious because I walked in after. Yeah, then you realize when you show up, it's like,
I just walked in here.
Somehow I pushed through channels that night, yelling outside on the street at the bar at my friend Hal Klein, who's a local writer. We need to go to this tomorrow. Pull every string you have. get me a contact with Jamie Oliver's people and make sure we can get in. And he's like, well, we'll just write out, I'm just going to write about it afterwards. You know, if something happens. I'm like, how? You need to get us in there. We need to connect with this guy now, right? And he's like, and after it was hysterical. So we have this great picture of Al Klein, Jamie Oliver, and we walk in, and I walk in, and there's a panel list of 6 organizations, right? There's Phipps, Whole Foods, Eaton Park, Phipps, Whole Foods, Eaton Park, Propel Schools, UPMC, and what else?
I always forget one. Did you say Whole Foods?
Yeah, I said Whole Foods. I don't know what the.
But they all sound big.
Sorry, we forgot you.
Yeah. Oh, you're not on the panel. You never were. You're dead to us.
Whoever doesn't love you.
You can chop this up. It's Phipps, Whole Foods, Propel Schools, UPMC,
Eaton Park,
and come on, Alaina.
I can't. Easiest bar, bro. I'm trying to think of people's faces. Who would he?
Yeah, UPMC, Whole Foods, Phipps. Anyway, we'll come up.
Well, this is why podcasting is so much better than radio, right? Because we could totally make that longer or shorter depending on how much comic relief we want to do.
Yeah.
No.
Sitting. Oh, in the mayor's office.
Oh,
that's what we forgot.
Bill Panuta.
No.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Jeez, no wonder we couldn't remember it. Yeah, Benito's gonna love that clip. No, we couldn't remember it.
Let's start mine very quickly.
Yeah, sorry.
Very fleeting thought.
I was sitting there and I'm like fuming on the edge of my seat because I'm like, you're offering Pittsburgh the first ever 1-year Food Revolution Challenge, and there's no small restaurant up there. All these organizations are doing great things.
Giant, yeah.
Propel Schools wasn't quite giant either, but it was, it was.
You may describe them as well funded.
How can it be in this food scene where everyone's talking about all these great small restaurants and nobody reached out to a small restaurant to be on this panel? Yeah. So I literally grabbed the mic from the lady walking around when the questions started. Lips quivering because I'm looking at Jamie Oliver. I'm like, hey, me and my 3 friends from high school just started a restaurant in the Strip District, and we spend all of our time going around to art events with a tray of Copa and Braziello, right? What can we do to get involved, and why haven't the local restaurants been engaged? And he's like, oh, well, a chef that wants to create change, his role is to inspire people. And, you guys have the energy if you did this.
So I was hoping for an accent there when you did that.
Not going to happen, right?
Because we did adjust it earlier.
We just filmed the crowd tilt video, and I realized that my Yinzer accent has returned.
Congratulations.
Oh, man. I had worked on New York. In New York on the trading desk, I would have to call out information. I'd be like, and one of the biggest things going on at that time was how much currencies were fluctuating, right? The dollar was getting smashed. And they're like, I was like, guys, the dollar just made a 1.2% correction. And these guys, which is like in currency moves, like a zillion standard deviations. Like it's absurd. And I'm like, look, it's going to affect the market in like 2 minutes. So like, Great. What's the conversion rate to the Pittsburgh dollar? I was like, jackass, focus. That's why we're in this mess. Focus. So we walked away from that, and then Justin and I walked outside. Right? And I was like, I need to talk to this guy more.
Where's the tour bus? Right?
Yeah, right? And I'm looking around.
Plankton and Mercedes.
Yeah, dude, we're literally like running around the outsides of steps. So like, I need to talk to this guy, right? And because I wasn't going to fight my way to the middle of the circle, I was like, we need to, invite him out. And so we were outside, and we overheard someone say on his team that he's back in the in a separate garden,
like a green room,
like 5-minute press things, right?
Yeah.
So again, we skip past the guards, run back up the stairs, zip around there, and wait in the press line for our 5 minutes with him. And Hal Klein has the press passes with us, right? So he's got. So we pop into this room.
Always a stud.
And I'm Hal Klein, man. That dude is just bebopping and a rolling. Let me tell you. So he's so we're standing up there, and so I start walking out with Jamie. I'm like, hey, here's what we're about, what our story is, and I remember telling him, and it was pretty funny. He never got to make it, and the reason he didn't make it, I was like, let's go eat at Cure tonight, because they just been named Bon Appetit top 50. I'm like, Justin Severino, he would love to cook for you, I'm sure. And Michael, it's BYOB, because we're still gonna be BYOB then. And Michael will pour some of those interesting wines we have, and he's like, yeah, I mean, I love. He's like, you're all fired up, man. He's like, you really just know, man, that you can create a huge change here if you just follow up, man. He's like, just go for it, right? And he was getting yelled at by his team because he was into it, and we were standing outside of Phipps, and he was late, and he didn't. And he's looking at, and her name is Cy Bright, and she's wonderful, right? So she's his executive assistant, and and she's like, Jamie, come on. He's like, yeah, but don't wait, it's fine. And he gives me some time, and I'm like, all right, we're on a mission. And there's this girl standing beside us, right? Latiana, and she's from the Youth Media Advocacy Program. And I'm like, I would really like teaching people how to cook would be amazing, right? We need people to be able to, because that's how we got fired up. And he's like, well, then you should teach people how to cook. And the girl, she goes to the Obama Academy. Or she went, I think she's graduated by now.
I'm sure, yeah.
She said,
please graduate this year.
Yeah. So she says, why don't you come cook for us at our school? I'm like, boom, let's do that. I was like, set it up. I was like, and I gave her the follow-up speech. I'm like, the most important thing is to follow up in life, whether you have a good idea, and tell her this part, like, whether you have a good idea when you're out drinking, which we all have, the most important part is when Justin and I woke up that next morning, we woke up knowing that we were going to open a restaurant.
Yeah, it wasn't just the booze inspiring you to greatness.
Nope, not a chance. Right? And I think a lot more people, if they want to, need to just follow up the next morning, right?
Yeah.
And just go, right? Yeah. Find a way. It's so much fun, right? To just like stop worrying, man. Just go.
It's only money and time.
It's a restaurant. Like whenever they say 70% of restaurants fail, I'm like, well, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. I just did data on Wall Street, and I hate quantitatives, and this isn't even quantitative. This is just something people say. How can 70% of restaurants fail when 100% of people eat? Like, no, I'm not buying that. Sorry. Nice try. So we went to cook at the Obama Academy, and the first thing we did was go to speak at her class and talk about food. And Mr. Reed said, I was like, how can we teach these kids to cook? He's like, well, if you want, we're looking for a club. It's an after-school club every Tuesday. If these kids are all excited about it, let's just let them. If they want to be, if they choose whatever, all the kids choose whatever club they want to be in, right? So they chose, I'm like, you guys want to start a cooking club? They're like, yeah. Because what did we do when we went in there? We brought food. And I just like yelled at someone the other day. I'm like, wait a second. We're doing the food next week at Live Well Allegheny launch. I was on the phone with someone. I'm like, and I was just invited just to watch. I'm like, well, who's doing the food? And they're like, oh, we don't have anyone yet. I'm like, you're launching something called Live Well Allegheny. You're not going to have any food there for people? I was
it's amazing how we forget the simplest things, right?
I was like,
the simplest things.
The best conversations happen over great food and drink. So I'm like, skip that, man. I will bring the food. And I'll tell you what, I'll take it one step farther. Let's show you what food can do. I'm going to go to the Shop and Save in the Hill, and I'm going to make crostini and everything from there, and I'm going to have the receipt there. And I'm going to have the recipe card there. And I'm going to show you that great food can be cheap from this grocery store, right? It can be inexpensive. So anyway, we're like, great. So let's start a cooking club. What's the first thing you need? And like Michael always taught me the first thing you need. And that's why I got a moleskin back in the day on Wall Street. It was, instead of a shoddy notebook, was you need good tools. You can't do anything. You don't need a lot of tools. Like whenever you'd have golfers buying like 10 drivers a year. That's really why I worked in a pro shop, and like, I worked at a driving range and see somebody down there trying out their 3 new drivers. I'm like, you guys are such fools. Like, why don't you try a different sport? Like, I don't know what to say.
So, try hockey.
You know, yeah, and you have that same thing where, you know, people buy a lot of stuff for their kitchen they don't need. Anthony Bourdain talks about a lot in Kitchen Confidential. You need good tools. You don't need fancy tools or whatever. So, like, all right, well, first thing, kids, we got to get you is tools. So we just started meeting with them every Tuesday until the spring semester started. How are we going to get tools? And, you know, Brandon Baltzley was throwing a dinner and they were looking for a charity to do it. And I'm like, we're not quite a charity, man. We're the 11 best chefs in Pittsburgh come to Bar Marco and do 11 courses, and we raised $9,000. And I said, all right, now we can get some tools. So the first thing we did was we went out and I went to Maturi Brothers, and they had carbon knives with a wooden handle, and they were $5 a piece. Now they take a little bit of, you know, Maturi Brothers on Penn Avenue, and wonderful people, wonderful place. They just shut down after so many years. I think they just got, I don't know the story. And, maybe it's because I should charge you more for the time.
Maybe it's the $5 high carbon steel.
You know, they take some, you have to get some rust off them sometimes. And so anyway, we bought every kid their own tool, their own knife, because the most difficult thing about
it's your identity, right? Yeah.
The most difficult thing about cooking is cutting. Because if you don't have knife skills, it takes you forever to cut something, right? You can always read how long you should cook things.
Sure.
Yeah. If you get raw ingredients, you don't know how to cut a pepper, or else you can't use the pepper, right? So,
well, and psychologically, right? Like you're a kid, right? And having that is a thing. It's an emblem of what you're doing. It's,
right. So on top of that,
status symbol, right?
Exactly. We bought them their own cutting board, their own steel to sharpen the knife.
Yeah.
Then we brought all of our own, we went to IKEA and spent like $600 on tables for the cooking room. This home ec room at the school had just boxes stacked up everywhere. It was a storage room. So we cleaned out the room with the kids in the first class and assembled these dining tables from IKEA and stole some chairs from the Japanese class.
2 of the stoves work, 2 of them don't.
Well, yeah,
parts, a couple. Anyway.
Yeah, a couple of burners work here and there, and it's fine, and refrigerators. But so we brought in all of our cookbooks from Bar Marco and said, hey, pick which one you want. We ordered it for you on Amazon. Done, and so they got their own. They got to choose what they would learn. About half of them chose. We saw half of them choose breakfast books, and the other half of them choose things like 11 Madison Park's book and like weird things.
Flavor Bible, like they bought instead of a cookbook, they pick a book that's all about flavors.
Yeah,
and they're like clearly they're interested in something very detailed.
So then we realized that curriculum in the cooking club should be split equally as well between things that inspire them. So bringing in chefs that are doing sous vide duck and medium rare and with sorrel and these crazy complex ingredients, and between making egg sandwiches and teaching perfect eggs.
Practical
and because no matter what, every class they have to cut something. Now they're like ninjas, man. Their knife skills. I would sincerely put little Jeffrey up against like some sous chefs I've seen in this city, and like.
No, the chef on Tuesday was in awe. We were like, no, you don't. He thought he had to prep everything for our kids to then like put it together like a puzzle.
And they were offended by that.
Yeah, they were offended. They were like, did you chop that already? Like, oh, Julia, she gets so intense about like you just watch her chop garlic. Like she literally came into cooking club on Tuesday and she's like, is there garlic to chop? Or can I do it? And then she's so intense and detailed. And it's been fun to see them go from basic knife skills with potatoes, where we're like,
don't kill your
finger.
Yeah.
To like
shorts
and spices, and also to move into the past couple weeks lessons in mise en place, which is everything in its place.
Yeah,
so to have all of your things chopped and in order and organized, so that we can then stand at the stove and really put together the recipe and really prepare it. And they just latch on like that. They're like, oh yeah, mise en place. Come on guys, like get it all together. So it's really cool to see them.
Yeah, it's incredible because they went from like no skills to good to fast and organized, right?
And teaching each other. So when we had our second round of kids now in spring, we kind of freaked out for next. We're like, oh shoot, how are we going to do this now? Like this is the next step of like we've got kids who have learned and have skills, and now we've got kids who are like green, and we're like we've got one on one hand, he's one end who's like chopping and doing well, and we've got another, and we're like, oh god, here's the other kid who's never had a knife before, and so we've got just having them teach each other. It's like, all right, teach them what you learned. Tell them what we've been telling you. Tools, skills, like basic things. And that's been really exciting to see that second round of kids come in and really pick things up. And on Tuesday, they just get out their steels and start sharpening and start chopping.
Yeah, they're ready to roll. And I'm like, so we were trying to think, we gotten to this point now and we brought in chefs. And, over the summer, we developed a really close relationship with the food service ladies at Pittsburgh Public, which is always the biggest challenge, saying, like, hey, how do you form a relationship with the school? Well, I'll tell you how you start. You be in a school every week and you make the school smell.
Yeah, you give.
People follow their noses.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's it. And then so it gets you in the conversation, and then being a business owner that started, by building plywood tables in the basement and sleeping there, my mind automatically goes to where does the money make, yes, but where does the money make the most impact? And guerrilla warfare, where I'm going to say, I'm going to take this little bit of money and this whole lot of energy and make an impact. So they asked us to cook school lunch. We cooked school lunch in the cafeteria with the lunch ladies.
That's awesome.
3 times, right? Brought Jamilka, brought Justin. Michael was still in town. Michael had an apron on that said, "I'd rather be golfing."
Yeah,
which was awesome.
So what did that look like? Because like I said,
lots of parents.
Yeah, well, I taught early. I taught for years, and
what it looked like.
You didn't use like Cisco ingredients, like you didn't.
No, but we did. Man.
Oh, you did.
They pulled up their order sheets and were like, "You guys have spinach and broccoli and chicken."
And you don't order it.
They've got.
Well, it's just like raw ingredients, and we're like,
crazy,
they
right?
don't know how to put their raw ingredients together. I'm like, tell us.
Yeah,
we want to do wraps. We want to do these things. Show us how.
So they wanted to move into wraps, and it's like, okay, we realized that I was ever looking back in time saying, okay, well, when I was a senior in high school, it was when Super Size Me came out, and that's when people started to recognize there was a problem, and when 90% of people were still in denial. And now I'm like, I realized when we went in there that everybody's welcoming us. They're saying, oh, you're not in denial anymore. You're all looking for a solution. And guess who has one that saves you money?
That used to drive me crazy, because like you'd look at like what was being offered as school lunch food, and it's essentially fast food. It's just horrible, salt, sugar, processed, and that they're overpaying for it because they're buying it from big, giant vendors.
So what's the first step in fixing that? Well, I said, where's your water? You're eating salt. And they don't have any water in the cafeteria. There's no water fountains, right? There's only water fountains down the hall. There was no water station. I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do first. For $40 at each school, we can put in something we'll call fancy water, right? We'll teach the cafeteria workers to slice up 2 pieces of fruit, put in a clear 3-gallon container, and provide water in the cafeterias and see what happens, right? So we went to 14 public schools in the fall while we were still doing the cooking club and running a couple of restaurants.
And you said you had bandwidth earlier, right?
Yeah, right. So, but it was okay because that's where the people that work with us or for us started to take ownership, right? And I would just have to come in and give them more direction and keep them inspired and whatnot, but they were still inspired by what we were doing. And by that point, we were starting to steamroll some things, right? We were starting to land some big events. We were starting to get some real notoriety in the press. Like we were in the press all the time for some reason. And maybe just because we were meeting everyone. And then Bon Appetit came out and named us, top 50 best restaurant in the country. And I'm like, this is our chance to meet more people in other cities. Like, forget about putting a plaque on your wall. We don't have plaques in the restaurant.
Yeah.
This is not an accomplishment. This is sincerely a responsibility. There's nothing. I was so scared when that came out. There's nothing cool about getting named top 50 best restaurant in the country than not hanging around.
Or tanking or not contributing. Yeah, just being.
Such a roller coaster day. I remember walking to the office thinking,
oh man,
my brain was just going. Like, we're doing this fancy water thing. We're about to start cooking club again. I'm like, I walk in the office one day and Bobby's like, I didn't want to tell you because you were out of town, but we have to do cooking club on Tuesday. I'm thinking we're going to do cooking club like 3 months planning. We have planning time. He's like, no, we're going to go Tuesday.
Just do that.
Like, oh my God.
It was the beginning of the next semester.
Yeah, so I walk in and I'm like, he goes, I have something to tell you. I'm like, oh no, what happened now? Like, Bon Appetit, we're top 50 restaurants in the country.
That's awesome.
So I was trying to stop everyone else from freaking out. I remember
I
remember a manager at the time jumped on our Twitter and was like, we are deeply honored. And I just went on there and deleted it so fast. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Don't say anything.
no, why are you deeply honored? What's so honorable about this? Like, you should be very excited, happy, but like, I don't.
Well, you have to bring people in, right? Like,
I'm like, relax.
You can't check out. You have to,
it's like, hey, focus. Let's get back to this thing. So, anyway, so we went to the 14 schools, and we're going in, and one of the greatest things I learned of what not to do from Jamie Oliver is piss off lunch ladies. So, God bless him. He was so passionate coming in there and just assumed people would be on board. But guess what? People didn't know who he was.
Change is hard.
Everybody in London knows who you are, brother. But guess what? Not in West Virginia. So you're just an asshole here.
Telling people to do it differently, do more work. That's
you're just
more time.
You're just what they call skin and bones around here, right?
Yeah.
You're put on some meat. And so we went in, we hugged all the lunch ladies, and one famously pinched my ass.
I thought about doing that earlier, but
whatever.
Figured we just need to be cooking together first.
It's like your 7th grade basketball coach told you, remember boys, or gym teacher, this guy was, right? Remember boys, a slap on the ass is fine, but if you feel fingertips, tell someone. Hand up. So
words to live by.
Right? So
I may get that engraved above our door.
So we went to, so we had the cooking club on all the while, man. Last year, so we skipped this part, which is probably most important, is last year we're like, okay, for Food Revolution Day, which is celebrated in 63 countries. It can be anything from 4 people sitting down having dinner together and on that day and cooking together to a massive party. And I'm like, this is what that riles me up the most right now that I'm changing and that I want to change in Pittsburgh is the scope of events, right? And making sure that they're inspired and make sense, right? So there's so we decided, all right, well, clearly, so out of that $9,000, we've got by the time Food Revolution Day comes around, we've been down to like $4,000, but we raised another $3,000 because Leia Lizarano did a No Menu Monday at Bar Marco for it. So we're back up to $7,000. I'm like, look, we need to celebrate with the $7,000. We need to blow it all right now on Food Revolution Day and celebrate what these kids did. So we rounded up to 10 of the best chefs in the city and 20 exhibitors. We brought in a full stage and what one of the kids called Kanye West Side speakers. And we blew that $7,000, man.
Made some t-shirts, no events.
1,800 people from the community came out and ate for free. So there's no charge. We're not trying to raise money with this event. The chefs got their all their ingredients and things paid for. We weren't, you're a restaurant. Everybody hit you up. You donate some food.
Yeah.
Like, man, no. Like, I mean, I will.
Costs something.
Yeah, I will. But like, I got to pay people to bring that food.
Yeah.
And we do it. We do our best, and we're really good at making it affordable. But it's like you just, every restaurant can't just, float an event. And so we had that, and then we had the momentum in the summer, and we had the fancy water, and all right, this club's got a wait list of 80 kids coming into the new spring semester or something that could possibly sign up for this thing. I'm like, well, now we're out of money. What are we going to do for the spring? So we threw another little dinner at Bar Marco and got enough just to keep the club going into the spring. And we floated it. The ingredients weren't that expensive, so we floated as much as we could this spring. While I pushed the kids to think up a sustainable model, and I'm saying, okay, well, how are we going to keep this going? Because I'm not chasing a grant. I've had enough of nonprofit $10,000 grant chasing for something that's meaningful. We got a great idea. We got to fund this thing, right? And we looked at Propel Braddock, and their cooking club has a school store, so we considered a school store. And then I was like, well, the problem is I'm going outside to the cooking club and watching kids line up outside the street at Sunoco. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. A food truck.
Yeah.
Let's get these kids paid to work after school, right? I'm watching their skills. I know they can do it. And so if we can, 2 things have to happen. 1, we have to throw the largest Food Revolution Day party in the world. We need $25,000. I want to pay the chefs to bring employees so that they can spend time talking with people in the community. I want to afford buses so we can bus people in from community centers across the city. I want to have enough, I want to have 60 organizations, and I want to be able to pay some of those organizations to be there so that their events or what they're providing is interactive, because I'm sick of going to events and seeing a table with pamphlets.
Yeah.
Like, enough. This is supposed to be, the best ideas are supposed to occur over good food and drink. And I want those organizations that are showing up to not necessarily be food related, so the kids can eat and the community members can eat, and they can go experience good things while their body's taking in great food and drink and juice up juice, right? Juice up 412 juice. So let's pull this off. Okay, well, how are we going to pull this off? Well, I'm also a Global Shaper in Pittsburgh, as is Alaina. So the Global Shapers are an initiative of the World Economic Forum, and every major city or metropolitan union across the world has 15 or 20 to 30-year-olds who are global shapers and who are supposed to work on one project every year that relates back to the World Economic Forum, what it's about. So we have the largest nonprofit in the world, and we're a sector of it. And we worked with Thrival Festival last year and supported Thrill Mill and did everything we could to take that to the next level with them. And I was like, so I brought it up at a meeting. I'm like, guys, what do you think about making Food Revolution Day this year? So they're like, yeah, we're all in. So now, we got 15 killers in Pittsburgh working on this event and working on making an organization.
Again, cross-sector. So we're talking about the exhibitors making things not just related to food. It's not just a food event. It's an event where the arts are represented, industry, business, startup, tech, everyone. And that's very much influenced by the Global Shapers model. So it's cross-industry. There's someone from Pittsburgh Ballet, Amy DeAndrea, killing as communications director there, to entrepreneurs, to finance, the whole 9 yards. So allowing that picture to really thrive and seeing systemic change come from that. So
now we got 15
everyone to the table for a whole picture.
And also 15 people that helped raise, almost $200,000 in 30 days for Thrival Festival.
Yeah, right.
And we threw that thing together. We literally had a meeting.
I know. I was around for that.
We had to make a decision one day. It says, hey, are we going to put $10,000 into this to secure the lot?
I know.
Or are we going to push this thing back to the spring or something?
I was in a car being drugged by a rope of 6 people, and Serge being one of them, shooting the little promo video that the week before.
Yeah, so, right. And so the promo video is the week before a concert.
Yeah.
Or somehow we nailed down De La Soul, RJD2.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of that stuff was Bobby's Apollo just killing it. But knowing that the Global Shapers were there to handle things like logistics and outreach and all those things. So it's like, okay, I'll do the same thing. Bobby's Apollo is my roommate at the time, and I'm like, all right, boys. Well, I'll play the Bobby role in this, and Alaina can play the Luke role, and we'll just, let the Shapers help us kill it. So we're like, all right, well, how are we going to raise $25,000? And we're going around the table and we're talking about reaching out to foundations, organizations. And I'm like, to do that, we need $250,000 to make this, sustainable. Okay.
Breaking news from Bar Marco.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm sure we can check and see what the crowd tilt is now. Hopefully it's going up. Let's do this with the community. I don't want someone else to have ownership over this when this is something for the community. Let's do it with a crowd tilt. We only need $25,000 to throw the biggest Food Revolution Day party in the world. And I think if we blow it up, we can... have a crack at, Kevin Sousa saying, okay, we've got, Kevin Sousa just did a $310,000 Kickstarter. I'm like, guys, look, man, it's slapping you in the face. Let's just do this thing. I bet we can, get to his level and get a food truck for the kids. And so they were all behind it. And I was like, and we can still attack the foundations and whatnot for after that. So, because we can take this thing to more schools, right? It's not like Sousa where he's got, he had just a restaurant, and a cooking school in there, like where his financial needs were, I'm sure he has more financial needs, but I was like, guys, there's no rush, for us to go after the foundations and whatnot. Like, he had to rush to make sure that he could open his restaurant. The schools are going to be there, so we can go after that.
So we're looking at the crowd tilt.
We're 5 days in
right now, and you're at $13,330.53.
Nice.
So who threw in the 53 cents?
Sure.
That's ridiculous.
Well, it takes out the percentage of feedback, though. It's pretty funny. But that's in 5 days. So
I recognize all those names on there.
The plan is that.
So let's look at some of the dignitaries who have donated, because these are always fun to do.
Yeah.
I saw Dan Gilman earlier.
Shout out, yeah.
I see.
Major supporter of the project. He will be at Food Revolution Day serving food to the kids.
I see Mike Capsema-Bellis.
Awesome, Pittsburgh! Yes, Mike is.
Oh, you're screaming.
Sorry, exciting alumni.
So the movers and shakers in tech are notorious, I think, for supporting these kind of things. And my computer's being all squiggly wiggly. Who else do I recognize on this list that deserves a shout out?
We've got Majestic on there. You said 412 represent. They're in our video. They're in the Livermore pop-up juice.
I see Miss G-Tech, Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah Inamorado. Huge help with communication and outreach to Livermore and Homewood and Wilkinsburg to really get the community out.
Yeah, the big news this morning was, Hillen Pharmacy kicked in, $1,000 to hit the juice up level where he's going to get juice. Because he loves those guys. He gets juice, every month or every 2 weeks.
So you're on pace, I would say, pretty well, right?
We're on pace to hit the $25,000 10 days into the campaign, and I want to do it even sooner than that. So we're on pace to that in the next 5 days. But then we can unleash the big dog. So the $5,000 level is, hanging out with McCutcheon at batting practice, and his publicist John Fuller was kind enough to just work with us because he likes the things that we're doing. So we've got a killer publicist behind us who's got great relationships. We've got Jamie Oliver's people to push this out to the world, but I'm holding off on that right now because I want Pittsburgh to pay for their own party. I want Pittsburgh to get its $25,000, make it a win, and then we can let in the rest of the world and say this is a cool model. Now let the rest of the world take that cool model to something they can use in their city, so we can take it to the food truck level after we pay for our own party. So it makes sense. It makes sense momentum wise. Nobody wants to see around the world. Nobody's going to get jazzed up by seeing something that's almost going to happen someday, sort of. So let's get it to that level. And at the same time, I think all the foundations realize, oh wow, man, a lot of people care about this thing. Yeah. Oh, wait a second, you're bringing these kids are sharp, man. No pun intended, and they can run this food truck. Oh, and guess what? They can compete with a business across the street that has a line out the door of garbage. We're going to cut their prices and serve better food. And then the kids are going to get a job and
skill and experience and mentorship and off the streets and all the things that we spend hundreds of billions of dollars on in this country.
Yeah, they're going to make money doing it, and the program's going to make money. So now, as soon as we get that food truck, man, that's what wakes me up in the morning. It's just like, and I think that's something everybody can take from this, right? Mm-hmm. You wake up in the morning and, in Bar Marco, when you're sleeping in the basement doing construction, because you see what you're going for. And it's like, we've got some great videos for inspiration in our presentation that we do. And one is with, Matt Damon on Entourage with LeBron James and Bono, where he's chasing down money for the One by One Foundation. He freaks out on Vince for not giving him enough money for the kids and things like that. But another one is from.
I think I got that in.
You gotta watch it.
How much should I give? How much should I give? Is it, do the right thing, Vince. Do the right thing. Don't keep me waiting. I'll be waiting, Vince. Don't keep me waiting. Write it today, Vince. Write the check.
And I'm literally saying this stuff on the phone here, every day. So, and I'm shaking people down for that $25,000 because, and then whenever we pull it off, I don't care if some people think I'm ridiculous or
people see us coming. They're like, no.
Soon enough, man. I literally shouted out my office window in East Liberty at Matt Saccone today, and I only talked to him last night. He's like, I'm doing it tonight. I know, I believe in you. I'm like, yeah, man.
Don't agree with.
I was like, yeah. He's like, at the end of that, Matt Damon's like, you gave me your word. You gave LeBron your word. I never even thought you were a good actor. So
for the kids, then.
Yeah,
for the kids.
So that's the plan, and to say, hey, let's we've proved we know how to run restaurants at least well enough. We've got Justin and Kevin are killing it, running Bar Marco and Livermore with Jamoka and Sarah and Justin and Steven and Dr. Drew and Seppi and Colin and the whole way down to Justin and Abby and Carrie and They're just taking full ownership over, Allison just behind the bar, and she's killing it, and that was, one of her dreams. And
Don on spreadsheets.
Don is just a genius, man. He is like, we almost went out of business 10 times because we didn't understand cash flow. One time, Michael got so fed up with the state system that he's like, looked at how much money was in the account and damn near spent all of it on wine inventory in one swipe, and all the wine showed up at the same time, which means we had to buy it. He's like, usually our wine is taking 3 or 4 weeks longer than it should to get here because all the funky stuff he's ordering, nobody at the state store has any idea what it is, right? And then it all showed up at once, or at least they finally realized, or at least they finally realized that this big pile of weird stuff in the corner was all Bar Marco's, right? So I literally freaked out, and I cut his card up. I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, oh. So,
is this another boy fight?
That was like the top of boy fights.
Boy fights with the layer of money and finances are the worst, probably.
But it's better than the ones, in other businesses you might see partners that, they leave that stuff under the ground.
Yeah, it's definitely better just to bark it out.
Yeah, punches are thrown, but it all gets worked out.
The night that Justin was supposed to leave, federated with some degree of dignity or sense, right? And being nice to them and letting them find another thing. Well, the day that he ended up quitting and I guess getting fired, so we got his bonus, right? And so we decided to celebrate because he got his bonus, and he was going to talk to them the next day and let them know that, hey, I'll hang around here as long as you need me until you find someone else to come in, but I'm not going to be here anymore. Well, we get a little carried away. We ended up having a wrestling match at Bar Marco on the concrete floors, first Kevin versus Justin, and then me versus Kevin and whatever. So
this is an interesting business model.
So I wait. Well, yeah, man. Hey, look, man. I've at that point 20 grand rolled in for his thing, and we were like, oh, here we got enough to ball out for one night, at least in our own restaurant. We can't really go out yet. We have to pay rent and stuff, and we ended up wrestling on the floor. And I got woken up the next morning at 11:30 a.m. with Federated calling my phone. They had tracked down Justin's mom, tracked down Justin's number, then she gave them my number.
And Justin wasn't there.
I don't recognize the number, and I roll over, I'm like, oh. And he's like, Bobby, it's so-and-so, which I had known from going to tailgating things. I'm like, instantly, I'm like,
sober.
Oh, I'm actually not at home. He didn't go. I could have swore I heard him getting ready. Was it the bus? But this time I didn't realize what time it was. And he's like, it's 11:30 in the morning. He was supposed to trade from home at 2:30 in the morning when market's open. Then he goes back to bed and comes in at 7 a.m.
Missed it.
So I'm like, maybe he's still waiting for the bus, or he's like, it's 11:30. I'm like, oh yeah, it's you know what? I'm not at home, and I'll call you back. And just hung up, right? So I went downstairs and with my phone ready and pictures ready to be taken, just smiling because I didn't care. That's hilarious, right? I'm like, well, I guess nobody in Federated is going to go to a restaurant anymore. That sucks. But I sort of put, and he is notorious. I used to have to wake him up when we lived together in Shadyside, right? And so I started shaking him, and he's like, this thing. I'm like, and he just looks at me, and he's just looking at me so innocently. And I don't say a word. I'm just taking pictures, and he's just squinting at me, and I'm like, hey buddy, it's 11:30 a.m. And he's like, And he just freaks out, right? And so I'm taking pictures nonstop, and he's freaking out, running around the apartment. I'm like, and then so we just sat down. He's like, I gotta call them. I'm like, don't call them yet. You gotta have a game plan.
Yeah,
you were gonna go in there today, and we're gonna have a timeline for when you were gonna be out of there. I was like, just rip the Band-Aid off, be straight with them. Be like, look, you celebrated last night because. Tell them, you're glad to come back in, you're glad to keep working, but, I celebrated last night because, we're going to be leaving to focus on the restaurant full time. And So he did.
Yeah.
He said, go fuck yourself. You're not welcome back. So, and
all right.
Well, let's go get to work.
Cool.
Sorry.
So everybody should go to the crowdfunding campaign, right?
Gotta go.
Everybody should throw money at it all the time.
$10 at a time. It's a huge deal.
Have ownership of this before before we launch.
And so when's the event?
The event will be May 16th at 2:30 in the afternoon at the Obama Academy. Email info@barmarcopgh.com if you'd like some more info. And also, if you'd like to find out here shortly after we cross the $25,000 level, we can order the buses for each neighborhood. So you can tell me what neighborhood you're in, and hopefully we've got a bus there for you to hop on and come to the event.
Well, it's awesome stuff for sure, and it's such a need, right? Because kids are growing up in this weird culture and not understanding what they're eating and how it's messing them up, right?
Yeah,
so we're excited for you guys, and we'll definitely see you there for sure. So it's awesome stuff.